Welcome back to the fight, survivors. We're back once more in the desert of the post-apocalyptic world, where massive spiders and insects have won the battle. And just like every day, we have to fight and search for what we need to survive. You're on my channel, Geno DP Trace. If you like my work, support its growth by giving it a like and subscribing. Today we're jumping back into some more gameplay. While I play, I'll be sharing the next episode of the Papaya story with you all. As I mentioned before, there's this guy named Igor, who works as an assistant to 3 scientists at the Nasal Observatory. These scientists are total klutzes. There's Papaya, the forgetful leader, Banani, a walking disaster, and Ravioli, whose mind is always on food. Igor never fails to tell me about the chaos his bosses create. And I was telling you about that time they remembered at the last minute that they had to travel for a work conference. So Papaya and the group set off for the conference, but they couldn't make it to the airport because they had too much luggage. In the end, they managed, but at check-in, they discovered that Papaya hadn't paid for the ticket. There was only one reservation, 4 people and 20 pieces of luggage to check in. And alas, sometimes, just like Papaya, we have to face reality. Like when they found out they had missed the flight. Maybe it was Banani's fault, with his uncontrolled and unauthorized zeal. That move of jumping onto the conveyor belt cost us time, my friend. Or maybe it was Papaya's fault, who should have clicked the pay button at the end of the online booking. I know, Papaya. That's the most painful part when you buy something online. But it's a necessary evil if you want to fly to the conference. Or maybe it's Ravioli's fault. Oh, yes, dear colleague. We haven't forgotten about the story of the passport. Supposedly forgotten at the office, but actually in your pocket. Anyway, what's done is done. Now Papaya has to find us another flight. I'm speaking figuratively, of course. I wouldn't dream of traveling with Papaya. No, thanks. I'd rather travel alone or with more normal people than you and your colleagues, Papaya. But poor Igor can't say the same, as he's forced to endure this series of disasters caused by their negligence, if we can use that euphemism to describe their complete idiocy. Anyway, sorry for rambling on, but Ravioli, after all this stress, is hungry. Igor and I know that hunger all too well. When Ravioli's hungry, get out of the way. Trouble is on the horizon. Igor confides in me that when Ravioli asks Papaya for the credit card to buy a chocolate bar, he was already rubbing his hands together and chuckling to himself. Papaya, busy with the flight problem, hands it over without a second thought. That fool had no idea what Ravioli is capable of when struck by his nervous hunger. But this time, he must have sensed it subconsciously. In fact, he warns him not to use the card directly at the vending machine, but to withdraw cash from an ATM instead. For Papaya, in his own words, vending machines are all suspicious and unreliable, and might clone the card. But Papaya got the subject wrong. He should have said, "My colleagues and I." See how much better this sentence sounds. My colleagues and I were all suspicious and unreliable. Yes? That's a true statement, Papaya, especially when we talk about Ravioli, who uses a visibly tampered ATM to withdraw money. Of course, after cloning the card, the screen goes blank and no money comes out. So, Ravioli, as if nothing happened, goes to the missed ATM, does what he needs to do, and returns to the others with his chocolate bar without mentioning a thing. Now, just like in our segment, the Psychoanalysis Corner, we've got a few points to submit to Ravioli's eccentric mind. 1. If Papaya was afraid of having his card cloned, the first thing any normal person would do is warn him that the ATM screen suspiciously turned off. And even more suspiciously, the card barely fit into the slot. But, of course, not Ravioli. Ravioli just thinks, that's strange. And he thinks it twice. 2. I understand that Ravioli had to satisfy his insatiable craving for chocolate as quickly as possible. But at least mentioning what happened to the others would have been the right thing to do. But Ravioli is one of those all-or-nothing people. 3. Did Ravioli really think that by inserting the card into an ATM, when the card barely fit into the slot and when the screen turned off, nothing would happen? I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about that answer. Let's think together. Ravioli inserts the card. That's strange, it barely fits. Ravioli, take the card out of there immediately, is what I would have told him if I were there. And then, continuing, that's strange, the screen turned off. It's okay, Ravioli. Go to the other ATM, nothing happened. You'll see. These things happen every day, right? End of the Psychoanalysis Corner, and now Papaya has found a flight. Ravioli, give me the card. Papaya looks at his hand, and what does he see? The chocolate wrapper. Oops, my bad, comments Ravioli. Dear Ravioli, oops, my bad. Should have been your middle name. Elpidio? Oops, my bad, Ravioli. Doesn't that sound great? Anyway, Papaya, unaware of the impending disaster, starts typing the card numbers on the phone to pay. And the others, as always, are talking about the book. Talking again about the creed in 1 Corinthians 15. Banani has realized that both Paul and the creed confirm that the disciples were convinced that Jesus had risen. Ravioli reminds him that, as critics agree, Paul didn't make up the creed. He just passed it along in his letter. And this means the creed shows us what common people were saying at the time. 2 years after Jesus' death, a light bulb goes off for Banani. Well, so it's not a legend. And Igor wraps things up by pointing out that while it was important what people in the first century were saying, what was even more important was what people at the airport were saying, seeing their luggage opened and scattered all over the floor. Audience. Igor cracks me up every time with his stories. And those scientists, I'm speechless. Friends, if you enjoyed the